Well, around February of last year, I was sitting there yelling at my television, trying to put a shoe through it, and everything that I was seeing going on, the bailouts, the continued, it seems like we have capitalism whenever there's profits and socialism whenever there's losses, combined with, the stimulus and then the rise of cap and trade and Obamacare and all these other things that were coming out. It just seemed like it was too much too fast, and the Republicans were completely impotent to deal with it. In many cases, they contributed to the problem, and so so a lot of people just kind of rose up and said stop. And really, the beginning of it was Rick Santelli's rant on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where he said, "Well, let's go take all these mortgage-backed securities and dump them into Lake Michigan," and everybody thought that was great. And so then, he called it a Chicago Tea Party, obviously in reference to the fact that the Boston Tea Party, they dumped it into the harbor. So nationwide, that sort of became the thing. Have a tea party in the area, and in February a bunch of them popped up, and then March, and then early March somebody got the idea, said let's have tea parties across the country on April 15th. And so I said, hey, that sounds like a great idea. I'd been involved politically in college, but I hadn't been involved politically since. And so I said, okay, well, let's do this. It'll be a true citizens movement. So I threw up a Facebook group and put something on the Tea Party Patriot site, and was rapidly overwhelmed by the enthusiastic response. I mean, I thought I was going to do it up at Pollywog Park in Manhattan Beach. If you're driven by there, it's on Marine, and it holds about 150 people. I figured that would be about how many people would come, and I was getting 30 to 50 phone calls a day.
Wow.
And in my line of work, I couldn't take my cell phone into my office at the time. It was in a closed area. So I would come back to my phone, and I would find out, oh, that looks beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd come back to my phone, and my voicemail would be full every day. And so I said, I'm going to need some help. So I put out an APB to my whole Facebook group and said, hey, who wants to get together and help plan this thing? And so we had our first meeting at a mall front gym down in Long Beach. And there was 20 people there, and we all said, okay, well, we want this event to be successful. We want to bring in a speaker. We're going to do a podium, what have you. And I went around the room and handed out responsibilities. I kind of took charge because I was the one who started the whole thing. And I was amazed at how enthusiastically everyone responded. Everyone wanted to help out. And when I got done, I asked, who feels like they can do more? And everybody raised their hand. And people were just pissed about what was going on. And so then I met my co-chair, Gary Avon, about a week later. Or my vice chair for a while there. I was the founder, I was the chairman, he was the president. That sort of thing. And Gary helped execute a lot of it. He'd been involved politically in the 80s and 70s. He was one of the guys that helped get John Ashcroft elected as a senator back in '84, just to date him. So, we got together this event. We had 2,000 people there, and after the event, we said, probably would have been more, but the cops were throttling the crowds down to the beach that day. It was at Dockweiler State Beach, and I have a picture of it up on my wall.
Oh, I think we saw a picture of that at the convention.
Yeah, or the general meeting. And there's a quote underneath it that says, if silence implies consent, can you hear us now? And that was kind of the whole idea with the Tea Party. Was, look, we feel like we have to rise up and tell you to stop because you're not listening. You're not doing it. And so that was kind of the beginnings of it. And then, we developed all these resources to plan the event, so we simply deployed them to continue with the organization, to continue having protests in front of congressmen's offices, to continue organizing events, general meetings, bringing in speakers, educating people, empowering people. It was really a different paradigm. And now, partly I like to think as a result of my efforts, we have something like 4 or 5 Tea Party groups here in the South Bay. There's a peninsula of Patriots up in where you guys live.
Yeah.
They have several hundred members. Their general meetings are very well attended. There's a Torrance Tea Party group. There's a West Side Tea Patriots group. I mean, just all these different things that have popped up, and it's all kind of a result of those first efforts we had about a year and a half ago. So, yeah, about a year and a half ago at this point almost. It was a year and 4 months. But, you know, I kind of got pushed into the leadership role because I was the first one there, and I was executing successfully, so they saw no real reason to replace me. So, and there's national organizations, there's statewide organizations, but they're not as powerful as the local groups. The local groups, it's very much a confederation sort of. They participate as they see fit.
Right. So, do you think there's any particular leader that you would assign to this movement? No, not at all.
No, I mean there's people that have tried to take control, and it's kind of like trying to grab a tiger by the tail. Part of that has to do with kind of there was no particular charismatic person. This wasn't top down. I mean, Nancy Pelosi can call it AstroTurf all she wants, but the amount of assistance I got from national organizations and groups was about this much. I think FreedomWorks sent me a number of bumper stickers, and Howard Jarvis sent me some bumper stickers. You know, and they initially participated in sort of getting, you know, helping. I mean, I know a lot of the leaders, and they've been very helpful in bouncing ideas off of and what have you. But for the most part, we've done it all locally. And I think that's what democracy is supposed to be about. We're supposed to elect our leaders locally. We're supposed to, you know, reserve as much power locally for people, and that's very much how the Tea Party's kind of grown organically. We talk to other groups in the areas. We used to have a monthly coffee with some of the other Tea Party groups, and as we've gotten wrapped up in our own elections, we've kind of, you know, we haven't been doing that as much, but for the most part, each group's kind of been doing their own stuff in their own area. And, I think that's great.
So it seems like, as you've mentioned, this is a reaction to big government stuff like the stimulus package, healthcare, etc. And you know, actually, are you familiar with Mark Meckler?
I know Mark Meckler quite well.
Right. We spoke with him the other day, and he mentioned that there's the Tea Party is really not affiliated with anything social. Are there any underlying social values that you think Tea Partiers share in common?
Well, I think there's an understanding that the biggest social issue facing us today is the amount of debt we're heaping onto our children. I think from a standpoint of social issues, that's been a very divisive wedge. And so we've tried to stay away from it. That's not the priority right now. I think a focus on constitutional principles is really at the core of the Tea Party, is the role of government. You know, we have this guidebook that's called the Constitution. And the role of government is defined in that guidebook, and where it exceeds those powers that are specifically enumerated to it, we should scale it back. And that's kind of been the focus of the Tea Party movement, is a return to kind of limited government, fiscal responsibility, along with it personal responsibility, and from personal responsibility comes freedom. Because if you're accountable for your own actions, you have the freedom to do what you want without some massive nanny state stepping in and tell you how to run your life. And that's, yeah, so I would agree with that.
Right. So then, how do you,